for being part of the fourth quarter 2020 College of Arts and Sciences Colloquium series titled Working from Home with New Coworkers, Our Children. Please welcome our presenter, Dr. Jacqueline Chinnapi. Dr. Chinnapi is an associate faculty member in the College of Arts and Sciences, Department of Behavioral Sciences. Having taught psychology classes for the past decade, Dr. Chinnapi has also worked remotely at home with 6 kids of her own. Dr. Chinnapi started working from home as an online tutor, freelance writer, editor, and curriculum writer in 2006. In 2010, Dr. Chinnapi transitioned to teaching undergraduate psychology courses entirely online and has become an expert at juggling work and life balance. In 2019, Dr. Chinnapi self-published a work-from-home guide, The Balancing Act, Tips and Tricks for the Work-at-Home Mom, to help others find balance in their own lives. Dr. Chinnapi is joining us today to discuss the difficulties of work-life balance, which can be problematic in the average or traditional work out-of-home setting. This work-life balance magnifies more so when you work from home. As we are met with unprecedented times, our remote offices have also been met with unprecedented coworkers, our children. With the increased number of schools moving to remote or hybrid learning, we are now sharing our workspace with our children. Thank you for joining us to learn more about successfully finding a work-life balance without burning out and ensuring a productive work setting. You may post questions in the chat and we will use them to facilitate a Q&A session with Dr. Chinnapi at the end of this presentation. Please keep an eye on the chat towards the end of the presentation for a link to an important follow-up survey. We appreciate your feedback. And now, Dr. Chinnapi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Chinnapi. Thank you so much for coming out today to talk about pretty much the balancing act of balancing our home life and our work life, which is happening all inside these 4 walls. So a little bit about me. I've been working from home for 15 years and I'm a mom of 6 kids. I have a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 9-year-old, 13, 14, and 16. So with COVID-19, 4 of my school age kids joined me at home for remote learning. So now we were all around the table. I have no dining room anymore and no formal living room. These are homeschool rooms and dance rooms. I have 2 girls who are actually in a performing arts high school, so they have to take dance classes throughout the day. So we had to change and make actual dance studios in the house and homeschool rooms, and I kind of almost got shoved to the corner of working. My husband is an essential worker, so most of my time is spent solo parenting. And this means literally he is gone all day long. And so it's me and 6 kids, and it's been tough, but manageable. Okay, so with COVID-19, as I said, kids across the nation and even the world were sent home to take part in remote learning. While many of us already worked from home, now we're going to be sharing our offices and workstations with our kids, and our work-life balance has now been impacted. What I said before, the entire family is literally working and schooling from the home, and everything's being done inside 4 walls. So I was seeing every story and post, social media, news clips, and everyone was complaining. Everyone I spoke to, all my friends, every parent I spoke to in school, they were complaining about their kids being home. They seemed to be at a breaking point. My kids have been home with me since March, and while their schedules have definitely been revamped, it was manageable. I almost started to worry, why was I okay? Is this the calm before the storm? I thought something was going to happen. So maybe something's going to break. I figured out that there were 3 things that I was doing that other parents were not doing. So the 3 main components are schedule, asking for help, and self-care. These components all fall under multitasking issues. Sheeman and Young, in 2010, they conducted a study examining schedule control for the work-family interface. One important dimension of the work-family interface involves multitasking, or the frequency that individuals try to engage in work and home-related activities simultaneously when they are at home. What does this mean? Multitasking can lead to role blurring. Role blurring is literally the merging of the two roles and bringing work home during non-work hours. Now, we work from home, so there has to be some kind of boundary. We need some kind of limits to what we're doing, some kind of set schedule maybe to ensure higher levels of productivity, not only with work, but also in our roles as parents, spouses, and all the other roles we have. So one of our goals is maybe to keep multitasking to the bare minimum. Now, I am the queen of multitasking, and sometimes I have to be told, all right, do one thing at a time. One thing I like to do is I work on a block schedule and I work towards deadlines. Imagine having to grade 20 papers, cook dinner, complete remote learning with kids, and having to fold laundry all at the same time. Everything starts getting thrown in. So now I'm faculty, mom teacher, and wife. There has to be some kind of schedule that you're following along, and divide and conquer. So do not be afraid to ask for help, especially from those who live with you. And when I say those who live with you, obviously your spouse. Sometimes we live in multi-generational grandparents, and I like to get a lot of support from my older kids. I have older teenage kids, so they're there to help with the younger ones. Right now, matter of fact, I have 4 kids home with me. We have no sound because they're outside entertaining the 2 little ones. With scheduling, the whole house really should be on the same schedule. I kept, when the kids moved into doing remote learning in the house, I kept a school schedule as if they were still in school, because some schools were not doing that. Some schools were actually telling the kids, listen, you have to do this by a certain time before midnight. And some kids were not getting anything done, or schedules are just getting messed up. So I like to keep the kids on a schedule because, number one, kids thrive on routine. They thrive on schedule. And when we remove that regimented aspect, we allow for disorganization to take place. And number two, parents need routine, because then we start getting a little crazy with schedules and what comes next and what needs to be done. Keeping a tight schedule allows for you to be productive with work and doing stuff around the house. Now, what I say here is I get up early and I go to bed late. Some people get up early, some people get up late. Normally, I kind of do both. This is a personal preference. This is something I like to follow, though, because I find that if I get up earlier than my kids, I can get a lot done before my kids are even up. And then when they go to bed, I get a lot done when they go to bed. We are lucky enough as faculty to work in an asynchronous environment most of the time. So most of our, or the bulk of our work is done during kind of off hours. Block schedules and deadlines are key. When I say block schedule, I will block out a certain time. So if my kids have, if they have lunch, for instance, my son was home doing remote learning today, and he had lunch from 12:30 till 1 o'clock, and then 1 to 1:30 he had gym recess. Then I would say, okay, this is the time that I'm going to get something done. This is the time I'm going to make sure I have for myself for work. Block scheduling it allows for flexibility, but it also allows for you to follow somewhat of a regimented schedule. I do keep office hours during the day when students can contact me, but sometimes the bulk of our work, like I said, is on the off hours. So, okay, schedule control. Many scholars have identified schedule control as a resource that helps people navigate the boundary between work and family and minimize conflict between those domains. As mentioned before, we use some kind of schedule and we use what works for you. What I said, what works for me, I get up early, I start my day at least an hour before the kids do. I keep the kids on a school schedule and I block out time periods. If we're not doing, like I said, the schedule control, then that boundary between work and family starts expanding. We have no boundary. Now we are okay, I'm going to try to grade a paper and I'm going to also help you. Come sit with me and I'll help you do your work too. And there can be a lot of confusion and many times no one wins at the end. An individual who performs work at home or engages in work-family multitasking is embedded in a high integration context. This elevates the likelihood that individuals switch between work and family roles when necessary. As I mentioned before, if I have my son or my child over here and we're working together, I could we can be less productive on both ends. So it's very easy to switch between roles when kids are home, remote learning, and we are home, remote teaching. I've had kids literally knock on an office door, knock on a door if I'm behind closed doors, asking for something as simple as a pencil. And we as parents will jump up and, oh, okay, I got it. There has to be some kind of boundary. So when you do those block scheduling, we have to tell our kids, okay, listen, this hour, no interruption. You have me for the next hour, okay? And that helps. Believe it or not, kids listen most of the time. Okay, this goes into asking for help too. I like this. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but pride gets in our way sometimes. I've always done that. My mother literally always said, oh, you're the eighth wonder of the world. You can do it all. You did this, you did that. You're taking care of the kids. But sometimes it's not really up to us to do it all. We have to really learn how to ask for help. And I know a lot of people don't like to ask for help. And it really hurts yourself in the end. So I really love this quote by Michelle Obama. And it says, do not be afraid to ask for help. Nobody gets through college on their own. We can think of this as our students, of course, but I like to also think of this as faculty as well. Everyone needs support. So where do we get our support from? Maybe it could be our colleagues. Maybe it's from someone at home. It depends on the support you need. Obviously, work support. We always turn to our colleagues if we need some help, maybe in the online classroom or teaching or issues with a student. And at home, when we have our kids, sometimes we need the support from the spouse, or like I said, I have older kids who are really great at helping with my younger ones. And that's where the bulk of my support comes from. And what I say here actually is, if you do not ask for help, then people may not always offer it. And I know a lot of people actually stopped offering me help because I always said, no, 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 no. And then I never asked for help. And a lot of people are like that. So you have to know when to ask for help, when it's time to ask for help, when you can't do it all by yourself anymore. Next slide. This kind of goes with asking for help. Recognizing symptoms of burnout. So symptoms of burnout, we may feel more angry, irritable, feelings of anxiousness, feelings of being emotionally drained and unwell, detachment from what we used to love, or boredom. You need to recognize burnout so that you know when to step away and say, changes need to be made. What needs to be changed? What is not working? This is not working for me. Let me come up with a better plan. And I say this for faculty, but we could be also carrying this over to our students as well, because they're going through the same thing. I've had plenty of students reach out saying, hey, I need a little bit of leeway with maybe some due dates and when things are due. And I work with them, especially what's going on right now with the pandemic. There's a lot going on. There are people at home, parents at home with their kids around the table, just like us. So we have to maybe even try to recognize symptoms of burnout for our students as well, because they may not know it. Okay, slide 10. So when you recognize burnout, what needs to be done is self-care. Self-care is so important. And I say it, and I am one to say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow for myself. Let me get something else done. We hear it all the time. We need to care for ourselves. And how many of us really do? In a time when self-care has been deemed as being selfish, especially as parents, sometimes when we go out and do something just for ourselves, go grab a cup of coffee by ourselves, go get our hair done, just go for a walk. It's extremely important and vital for one's mental, emotional, and physical well-being. CNBC actually reported in a monster survey this year that 69% of worker burnout among the remote workers during COVID-19 pandemic. That's almost 3/4 of the workers who were remote working. They were being burnt out. Workers are feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, less productive, and many of these symptoms can be eliminated by setting limits and ensuring self-care. So how do we achieve self-care? I mean, I know I put my kids and family first always, but through the years I found that I couldn't give much because I was empty. Empty meaning one of my favorite metaphors. You can't pour from an empty cup. We need to replenish and we need to take care of ourselves, because if we can't give, and parents are givers and faculty are givers and we're teaching and working, and if we can't give the best versions of ourselves, then there's nothing to give really. It's a lose-lose situation. So we need to make sure we are taking part in our own self-care. Self-care that I can think of, I mean, maybe if anyone wanted to put it up in the chat of self-care that they take part in, some things that are more obvious, maybe sleep, exercise, something that sounds so silly, but with 6 kids, it's self-care to me. I spend hours in the kitchen cooking for my kids who sit down and eat in all of 15 minutes, and it's a lot of noise and hassle and, oh, pass the bread, and I didn't get this, and I didn't get that. There are sometimes during the week when I will eat after them if I'm home, if my husband's not home, or in the morning on the weekend when my husband is home, we'll get up extra early and we'll have breakfast by ourselves. I love my kids, but that is a little bit of self-care for us and not always making it about everyone else. Something else that I think of is mindfulness and breathing techniques. And it was interesting to see my children's, with remote learning, the kids were home for months and they're hybrid. And with these increases, unfortunately, some of them might even be going back to virtual. We don't know yet. But the schools actually set up mindfulness techniques and assemblies to watch on Zoom, breathing techniques, yoga exercises for the kids. And it's very important because the kids are stressed too. They don't, a lot of them don't understand what's going on. I felt terrible, for instance, for kindergartners who were starting school this year in our school. And this is all they'll know, wearing a mask and going and staying 6 feet apart. And they don't understand, or learning from home and being on a computer. So when the schools put this out, I thought this was a great strategy to get the kids less stressed and give them some coping mechanism and coping techniques. Not for nothing, we as adults should take on some of those techniques. And I started doing it with my own children, the mindfulness and breathing techniques during the assemblies, and it was great. I think we're on our last slide. Yeah, so that's all our references from the quotes we had today. So the 3 main things that I think really helps, and it helps create boundaries and has made a very smooth process of having the kids home with me while I'm working. Schedule, asking for help, and self-care. These are 3 things that can help make the whole process smoother, but it can also help unblur the lines as you work from home with your kids by your side.
We're getting a lot of thank you
Sure.
and kudos in the chat.
Thank you.
A lot of people having kids transition back to home.
Oh yeah, a lot of kids transitioning back to home. I see this happening, unfortunately, more so right now. I think upon the winter months we have coming in. One thing I did with my kids, and I suggest if you don't do it already, I really suggest you do it. So for my girls dance, and my little guy, he plays baseball. So can't do baseball obviously on Zoom, so we had to throw him outside to get some stuff going on with him. But my girls continued their dance classes while we were during this whole pandemic through Zoom. And like I said, I reworked the whole house to ensure that they had comfort and to ensure kind of normalcy for the children. And two of my kids, like I said, they're in performing arts high school, so they're in hybrid, and this continues now because half the week they are home and in class. And so one of my hallways is a dance studio now, and my formal living room is now a dance studio. So I suggest extracurricular activities, ones that they can do from home, maybe if it is that we come back inside and have to move to virtual learning, if there's any kind of extracurricular activities that they could do through Zoom, because that really helps with social emotional learning and social emotional just for the kids who aren't getting to see their friends every day.
That's awesome. It's amazing. You said they continue their dance classes. It's amazing the space we find in our homes during this time and the space we thought we had that goes away really quickly. So it's
Yes.
definitely a neat adjustment to managing those different schedules and those different space needs as well. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Chinnapi. Appreciated your presentation. Stay tuned to your email, the CETL website, and the CETL social media for details about the next College of Arts and Science Colloquium on December 1st at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with Dr. Nancy DeVore, who will present using neuroscience to improve online learning in a mediated world. Tune in to see how the intersection of neuroscience, learning psychology, and media affects inform new ways to enhance teaching practices that increase learning's meanings and makes a lasting impression for online learners. Stay happy, healthy, and enjoy your day.